Welcome to What's Now. I'm your host, Christine Napier. This is a show where we talk about what is trending and what people are. We are going to talk about whiskey distilling. There's a new series, a reality series, all about these moonshiners. Let's take a look.
This is how we make the moonshine.
It's time to get in here and get busy and see what kind of liquor you're gonna make us.
Oh, we're fixing to get serious right here.
Digger and I are going all in on bourbon. This is where now.
You hear the roar on that creek?
I do.
All right, by the time you get a still running, you got to keep your head on the damn swivel.
For 15 seasons, Moonshiners gave America a version of Digger Mains. But there was a whole lot more happening off camera. Viewers saw the stills, the mountain runs, the close calls, and the friendship with Mark Ramsey. But much of Digger's real life never made it into the show. His relationship with Mark was more complicated than television suggested. His views on the moonshining world were not always what fans assumed, and back home, he was quietly building a life far removed from the cameras. Then, a devastating diagnosis changed everything. So what did Moonshiners leave out about Digger Mains? And what happened when he finally had something he could no longer keep private? Join us as we uncover the story the show never told. The man the show turned into a character. Newport, Tennessee sits in Cocke County at the edge of the Great Smoky Mountains, and if you have ever driven through it without stopping, you have missed a place that carries more history per square mile than most American cities 3 times its size. The county has a long relationship with moonshine that predates any television show by at least 2 centuries, a relationship born of geography, economics, and a Scots-Irish cultural inheritance that treated distilling corn liquor as a completely natural extension of what you did with your harvest when you had more grain than you could otherwise use. Eric Maines grew up inside that tradition. He has said directly that he finds it somewhat offensive to be labeled a criminal for making moonshine, that he grew up learning how to do it from people who learned from people before them, and that the law's position on the matter has always felt to him like an external judgment being applied to an internal cultural practice by people who did not understand what they were judging. He believes there is no shame in making illegal moonshine to put food on the table and keep a roof over one's head, and that belief is one of the things the show consistently smoothed over in favor of the more dramatic narrative of outlaws evading the law. The drama sold. The economic reality of Appalachian communities, where distilling had historically been one of the most viable ways to convert agricultural products into portable income, did not translate as easily into television. When Discovery Channel's Moonshiners first aired in 2011, Digger was not an original cast member. He came in through his decades-long relationship with the most famous moonshiner in modern American history, a man named Marvin "Popcorn" Sutton. And the show used that relationship to establish Digger's credentials as an authentic practitioner of a craft that was already legendary in the region. His partnership with Mark Ramsey, which had been built over years of actual moonshining experience before the cameras ever arrived, gave the show 2 personalities that complemented each other in ways that felt genuinely lived in because they were. What the show built around those genuine foundations, though, was something considerably more constructed than the authenticity of the men at its center. The Popcorn Sutton story. The show got wrong. Ask most Moonshiners viewers about the relationship between Digger Mains and Popcorn Sutton, and they will give you the version the show presented. Digger as Popcorn's protege, the younger man learning the craft from the master, carrying that education forward as a tribute to his mentor's legacy. It is a clean, emotionally resonant narrative that fits perfectly into the show's mythology about the passing of an ancient tradition from one generation to the next. It is also, by Digger's own account, not entirely accurate. Almost every piece of information out there about Mains, including his bio on the Discovery Channel website, states that Popcorn was essentially Digger's mentor. But Digger describes their relationship as an equal partnership, stating it was actually he who helped Popcorn build his first 500-gallon still. The distinction matters because it changes who Digger is in the story. Not the inheritor of someone else's legacy, but a craftsman of equivalent standing, who happened to work with someone the world later decided to turn into a legend. The two worked together for more than 20 years, running stills at all hours of the day until Digger was ready to walk away from illegal moonshining entirely. Popcorn Sutton's death in 2009 took his own life rather than serve an 18-month federal prison sentence for moonshining violations was a genuine tragedy within the Appalachian moonshining community, and Digger's relationship to that loss was the relationship of a man who had worked alongside someone for 2 decades rather than the grief of a student losing a teacher. When Digger was finally ready to walk away from illegal moonshining, his reasoning was personal. He told a reporter plainly that he was getting tired of it, that a new child had been born, and he did not want to go to jail, and that Popcorn would flaunt the illegal activity in front of everybody, which was kind of dangerous. He told Popcorn he was done, that he appreciated all the fun, but that it was time to grow up and be a big boy and raise the child. And that decision leads straight into one of the biggest questions surrounding moonshiners. The question nobody wanted to answer. The central question that has followed Moonshiners since its premiere in 2011 is one that anyone who thought about it for more than 30 seconds would ask immediately: how is a television show depicting people committing federal crimes airing on a major cable network without anyone getting arrested? The answer, when Digger and Mark finally addressed it directly, revealed something important about the gap between what the show appeared to be and what it actually was. Mark Ramsey addressed the authenticity question with a piece of legal reasoning. The fact of the matter is, when it's on TV, it's already done. If police aren't involved in the recording process, they can't use that against us because they don't know that that's liquor coming out of the still. The legal argument that television footage is not evidence because you would need to catch the distillers in the act to prosecute them, and a camera crew's presence does not constitute being caught in the act by law enforcement, has a certain practical validity, but it also has a significant implication that the show never made explicit. If the footage cannot be used as evidence, it might be because the footage is not actually showing what it appears to be showing. In March 2012, the Virginia ABC Bureau of Law Enforcement confirmed that they would have made some arrests if illegal activity was genuinely going on, and stated in the Associated Press that they were not taking part in the false depiction of moonshine manufacturing. Virginia authorities slammed Discovery for airing what they described as a false, misleading show, and asked the network to add a disclaimer, a request that was reportedly overlooked. The show's response to that official statement from a state law enforcement agency was to have its cast members say the state was just mad because they had not been able to catch them. That counter-argument does not actually address what Virginia was saying, which is that there was nothing illegal happening to catch. The stills, the jars, the tense moments of appearing to evade authorities, all of it could be staged with perfectly legal water inside the still rather than illegal whiskey, photographed to look exactly like the real thing, and then edited with dramatic music to produce the impression of criminal activity that never technically occurred. Digger and Mark's partnership with Sugarlands Distilling Company in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, a fully licensed and legal operation, has been a known fact for years, and the existence of that partnership makes the narrative of ongoing illegal production considerably harder to sustain. You do not build a legal business relationship with a licensed distillery if your primary operation is illegal. The two business models are not compatible in the way the show suggested they were. What Digger has said about all of this, when pressed, reflects the discomfort of someone who knows the full truth and has been living inside a simplified version of it for public consumption. He did not claim everything on the show was illegal or entirely staged. He occupied the middle ground that the show created for its cast, authentic enough in their knowledge and their craft to be convincing, ambiguous enough in what they would confirm to keep the mystery alive. So, what was Digger Maines doing in Newport while Moonshiners was busy chasing drama through the Tennessee woods? What the show never filmed in Newport. While Moonshiners was chasing drama in the woods, Digger Maines was building something in his hometown that told a more complete story about who he actually was. And the cameras never followed him there because it did not fit the narrative the show needed to maintain. Maines turned his lifelong moonshining passion into a legal business, selling brewing supplies and teaching beer and wine classes. He opened the Back Alley Granary in Newport, a shop that occupies the space where his television persona, the outlaw moonshiner dodging law enforcement, gives way to the person he actually is day to day. A businessman, a craftsman, a teacher, a deeply rooted member of a small Tennessee community who wants to share knowledge rather than hide it. The shop sells everything an aspiring home brewer needs to make beer, wine, or spirits legally, and Digger teaches classes there with the same unhurried expertise he brings to everything else. His wife Allison runs Fruit Jar Alley right nearby, a boutique selling women's clothing and home goods in the same downtown Newport space, where the show's mythology meets the ordinary retail reality of a small mountain town. The community angle is something Digger has spoken about with obvious feeling. He said that the most rewarding part of the entire experience is that he and Mark have lived blessed lives, not only through what they have been afforded by the show, but because they were fortunate by the grace of God to live in one of the most beautiful places on the planet, in the East Tennessee mountains, and to be able to share that with the rest of the world, along with the struggles and strife they have had to deal with. The Back Alley Granary is Digger's answer to the question of what you do with 40 years of distilling knowledge when you have decided to stop doing it illegally and start doing something constructive with it. In 2025, his wife's boutique Fruit Jar Alley suffered severe flooding that damaged the shop significantly, but the community rallied around them with the loyalty of people who consider the Manes family an institution rather than just a business. But the flooding was not the only tragic thing that had happened in the Maines family. The cancer diagnosis. Season 13 of Moonshiners premiered on January 2nd, 2024, and in its final scenes, Digger delivered what the show's own promotional material described as a shocking revelation: that he had been diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, a type of blood cancer, and that his health was no longer something he could keep entirely separate from the story the show was telling about him. Digger shared on social media that after extensive testing, he had confirmed his CLL diagnosis and expressed his feelings about the condition, noting that although it is not terminal, it would lead to ongoing challenges. He encouraged viewers to continue sending their prayers and support. The vulnerability of that public disclosure, sharing a cancer diagnosis with an audience of millions through a combination of social media and television, was entirely consistent with the straightforward way Digger has always communicated when he chose to communicate. He did not perform distress. He stated the facts, acknowledged the difficulty ahead, and asked for prayers. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia is a cancer of the blood and bone marrow that primarily affects older adults and tends to progress slowly in many cases, which is why Digger's framing of it as not terminal but challenging was medically accurate rather than optimistic spin. CLL can be managed for years with appropriate treatment, and the ongoing nature of that management is the kind of difficulty that the word challenging captures precisely. The season 13 premiere showed Digger and Mark attempting to distill beer in Popcorn Sutton's Old Still, a project that hit significant walls, while the final scenes introduced Digger's health situation in a way that changed the show's tone from its typically adventurous narrative to something considerably more personal and grounded. The shift from the cat-and-mouse outlaw format to a story about a man managing serious illness while trying to continue doing the work he loves is a significant tonal change for any television show. And Moonshiners handled it by simply letting Digger tell his own story in his own way, which is how he has always been most effective. Fan response to the diagnosis was immediate and sustained. The Moonshiners audience that had watched Digger for a decade responded not as a television fan base to a cast member's health problem, but as people who had spent enough time with someone on screen to feel a genuine personal concern. The prayers and support he asked for arrived in volumes that reflected an audience connection that went beyond passive viewership. Eric Maines officially joined the Moonshiners cast in Season 4 and has since appeared in 9 seasons as of 2025, with additional appearances across 75 episodes of the related production Master Distiller, where he served as a judge and mentor, a role that finally let the cameras show the version of Digger that his Newport neighbors had always known. The teacher, the experienced hand, the person who could evaluate someone else's craft with the quiet authority of someone who had spent 40 years developing his own. The cancer diagnosis also opened a window into the marriage and home life that the show had always kept at a respectful distance. His wife Allison recalls him being the first to say, "I love you," a moment that happened while riding in Popcorn Sutton's Jeep, and describes a relationship between two equally stubborn people who balance each other well. She planning the date nights, he providing the humor and the outgoing energy that makes every room warmer. They dine at local spots like Chop House. They have traveled to Eleuthera together. These are the details of an ordinary, happy life that the outlaw narrative the show constructed never had room for, and that the cancer diagnosis finally created space to share. But if that was the man behind the television character, what did Digger himself think about the version of his life that Moonshiners had been selling for years? What Digger finally said about all of it. In an interview with Road Trippers, Digger Maines said something about his television experience that most people in his position would have packaged more carefully. He sat inside Fruit Jar Alley, his wife's boutique in Newport, wearing overalls with the top buttons undone, and told the reporter directly that he did not look like someone of reality TV fame, and that he did not exactly line up with anyone's expectation of a real-life backwoods moonshiner either. That observation, delivered without embarrassment or defensiveness, is the key to understanding what Digger Maines has been telling us about Moonshiners for a long time, mostly through the life he has been living in the spaces the show never filmed. He is not the character the show made him. The character served a purpose, told a story that millions of people found compelling, and gave him a platform he has used in genuinely constructive ways. But the character was always a simplified version of a more complicated person. And the simplified version was simplified to serve television's preference for clean narratives over messy truths. Moonshiners has continued into Season 15, and Digger and Mark remain its central figures, navigating a show that has evolved from its outlaw drama origins toward something more willing to let its characters be human rather than mythological. The partnership with Sugarland's distilling company is legal, transparent, and commercially successful. The Back Alley Granary is legal, transparent, and genuinely useful to people who want to learn what Digger knows. The Master Distiller episodes are legal, transparent, and show an audience the teaching Digger that the Woods and Evasion format could never capture. What Moonshiners never showed you was the version of Digger Maines that Newport, Tennessee has known his entire life. A man who loves his mountains and his town and his wife and his craft, who made decisions about risk and family at the right time, who carries 40 years of knowledge in his hands and has found the most meaningful use for it in a small shop on a side street where people come to learn rather than hide. The cancer is part of that story now too, adding a weight and an urgency that has made Digger more willing to speak plainly about what the show always obscured. The Still in the Woods made good television. The man who built it and walked away from it to raise his child made a better life. Now that you know what Moonshiners never showed you about Digger Maines, does the show feel different to you? And do you think Discovery ever gave Digger the space to tell his real story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.